It is 6:31. We'll go ahead and open up the Freetown-Lakeville Regional Finance Subcommittee. We'll do a quick roll call. Myself, Steve Owen is here. Brian Day.
Here.
Katie Calhita.
Here.
Darren Beals.
Here.
All right. So with that, Jennifer Blum is not present, as well as Trevor Matthews. So we
Trevor is here.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, hey, Trevor, didn't see you there. Welcome. Trevor, let us know you're here. Response, yes?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Also present, we have Alan Strauss, Superintendent of Schools, as well as Deidre Farrow-Wells, the Interim Director of Finance for it. Then we also have on the line Terry Fleming, who is the Director of Curriculum and several other ... associated with it. I know there are a number of other town officials on the line. You want to just quickly recognize you here. Ari, the Lakeville Town Administrator, correct?
Yep.
All right. I also see Margaret French. I believe you're on the Freetown Finance Committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And I see Deb Petty just to join as a Freetown Town Administrator.
Yes.
All right. And then Christopher, Chris, Mr. Plonka, how would you like to be referred to as?
Chris is fine. I'm the Lakeville FinCom chair. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. So wanted to thank you guys for joining. Wanted to at least to talk a little bit about the beginning of the budget process with the school committee and with Ms. Farrow-Welch's outlining of a budget timeline so that we have reviewed that. And we are underway with a number of external discussions here, but wanted just to open up the discussions with the respective towns. I know there's been some questions, also some feedback they would like to present. But going by the agenda, the first thing I wanted just to talk about is E&D updates. So in the FY24, there was in the assessment sheet, there were a few items added from E&D. And I'd like to just talk through them now. And Ms. Farrow-Welch, Mr. Strauss, keep me honest here if I go off path on them. One of the first things in the E&D was an additional bus. We challenged the bus company as well as the district to how do we shorten the number of buses in the district. A couple of years ago, we were down to 23, I think right before COVID. And then with COVID, there was added an additional one. Challenging them to redo routes, what have you, is always a good exercise and make sure we have the most efficient. But what we found is that with that one less bus, there was a number of students who were not getting to school on time. And just as important, were being picked up from school late based upon the timing of the bus routes as it coming from not only the campus schools, but also the elementary schools in both Lakeville and Freetown for that. So we did pull an additional bus with payment out of E&D for that. Another big ticket item in there, I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but when Mr. Strauss came in, one of the big things we wanted to talk about was security. And there were changes underway that started with Freetown Elementary School with the new vestibule within the schools. Just to give a little bit of color, what it was is, or what it is now, to gain access to the school, you have to be buzzed in the first set of doors. Obviously, first articulating who you are and what your purpose of being there. You are buzzed in the first set of doors, and then someone greets you at that second set of doors where an ID needs to be presented. And if you are dropping something off, you leave it within the vestibule. If you need to gain access by volunteering or a meeting, you are escorted to that. So that process is set up in all the 5 school buildings. And we received a quote last year after FES was completed. It was going to be about $95,000 to finish them. We were waiting for a grant to be fulfilled, and the thought process by the school committee was not to wait for the grant. We should do the work over the summer, so that way we'd have less impact to students. So we voted to fund it out of E&D, which is a good use of one-time funds. But since then, we did get a grant to pay for that, which will be reimbursed for it. Okay. Any questions on the big ticket items there? Or just E&D in general?
Quick question. How much in E&D was allocated to the 24 budget?
Let me just bring in here. So on the assessment sheet, but let me just bring up what I got in the assessment. Give me 1 second.
Including those changes, Ari, or prior to?
Just all together.
So I could answer that, Steve, and be helpful if you'd like.
Go ahead,
Perfect.
Deirdre.
There was $176,378 for transportation services. And later on, the vestibule project voted out of excess and deficiency was $95,669.83. Those were the only two items.
Okay, so about 271,000, so
Approximately.
roughly. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
About 272 rounding for that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions on E&D?
Did the grant money for the vestibule project get put back into E&D?
Go ahead.
Thank you. It did not, because it cannot, if you will. Excess and deficiency can't be funded. It has been a legal vote. It has to be declared a vote out of the school committee. It's sent to the Department of Local Services prior to taxes being set and our recap sheet. So it's not, you can't deposit it back, if you will. So it has to be accounted for because it's audited, if you will.
Okay. How much did come back on that grant?
The grant from the state is a $75,000 reimbursable grant. So the district either spends the money, encumbers the money, and then seeks reimbursement through the state process.
Okay.
And sorry, one more thing is the grant was for the campus schools only. So part of that excess and deficiency may have to fund Assawamsett, depending on the total project, if you will.
Margaret, if I can clarify one thing, the grant, so we originally asked for a Safe Schools grant that we applied for $100,000 along with multiple schools throughout the Commonwealth. While that was happening, we did receive from Senator Roderick's office an encumbrance of $75,000. We did not receive the grant, so I don't want it to be perceived that we're getting both the grant and then the encumbrance from Senator Roderick's. We didn't get the grant because the very large schools within the state, within the Commonwealth, received it. But we do have the encumbrance from Senator Roderick's office.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian, you were going to jump in there with a question or comment.
Yeah, I think the superintendent just answered it because I heard Deirdre say a percentage, but not how much money we actually got. But we did not get the grant, so we
did not get the grant. We're getting the encumbrance, correct?
Okay, thank you. Margaret, did that answer your question then as well?
Yes, it did.
All right. Wonderful.
All right. So moving on to the next one as we roll into the new budget season. The initial conversations within the district are underway. We've had some initial conversations at the school committee level, just looking at areas such as compliance needs that we'll be looking at both from what is required from for example, on the ELL side, educator-student ratios. In that, we are working toward to make sure that we are compliant as we continue that. We are looking at student services as a whole, both from a special education and all of our students that come to that, and obviously keeping in mind the overall budget and what that looks like. So those are going to be some focus areas as we get more information, more details. And the other thing I'll just mention up is we are looking at capital. We do have a number of items within the district. I know the town building inspectors are keenly aware of some of the items, including the roof at the high school and other areas. But we will be looking at those and obviously prioritize, right? So there's look at one of the needs and then prioritize and see how we can best move things forward.
Any questions on what Steve was just discussing? I think one of the other things that has been a question, I know Ari, you and I have spoken about it, briefly, is the district during COVID over the last couple of years has used money for teacher positions.
Right.
And that money is obviously run out. So how are we looking to retain those staff? Obviously that's an operational situation, and we have a number of teachers who are retiring. So we are going to be looking at that will be the first place. So I just wanted to touch base and not think that we're not having that conversation, because that is part of our concern.
So just for transparency, Alan, could you describe how many teachers we're talking about and what the estimated value is in those positions? We don't know right off. Send it to us.
Terry, are you on? Deirdre,
Yes.
you're on?
Yeah. So the initial discussions were 3.9 FTE as a whole,
right,
for approximately $200,000. That was the filing, if you will, in regards to the initial ESSER 3 request. The other areas, if it's all right to continue, if it's
Yep.
that we're focused on and evaluating and discussing, is not only the loss of ESSER in those positions and that funding through hopefully attrition and retirees, but we're also working through our health insurance costs and other associated costs with utilities in that campus environment that we're running, water, sewer, and capital issues or concerns there, so that, as Steve discussed, that we were looking at some of those components along with our master planning and tied into our master planning. Special education, not only expenditures, but programming. So how are we effectively, meeting the programming needs, compliant needs, as Steve talked about too. And in fact, today we got an email from the commissioner's office that on January 10th, we're going to be looking at potentially receiving what's referred to as special education relief aid that's new this year. So while we might be losing ESSER, do we have any other funding opportunities to understand and go after to offset some of our costs? So those are kinds of some of the other areas that Steve and Alan have asked us to take a look at through the budget development process.
If I could just comment that I see your hand raised again, Brian. Give me 1 minute. Obviously, the 3.9 in my mind is 4. I don't know how we're going to get 0.9 of a resource, but we can work that. These are, and again, from a transparency perspective, these are, I want to use the right terminology here. They're not specialists as in like music, gym, what have you. These are reading specialists. These are math specialists, which are key, especially with the learning loss of COVID, right? So these will be in the direction that from a school committee is, hey, listen, we need to go at this as a no net new starting point, and let's see where we're at with that. But they are critical, especially with bringing some of these students up to speed here. I am extremely concerned about special education. I know this was a hot topic last year. I'm fearful that what the director of special education outlined last year is coming to fruition. The number of evaluations that are in play are through the roof. We will continue to monitor that and see where things play out. The other piece is we do and we have had move-ins into the district that have a increased special education cost. We are working with the prior district who, correct me if I'm wrong, is paying for the current, while they're in our district, they're paying for the current year, but we will assume responsibility for that in the new, as part of the FY25 budget. Right?
And it is an outplaced student.
Yeah. So it is something that obviously it's a no-brainer, but something we have to continue to look at. So those are the two big items that we definitely are continuing to monitor. Brian, you had a question here.
Yeah, if you don't mind, back to the 3.9. Was that 200,000 inclusive of all benefits and everything associated, or is that salary only?
Salary only?
Is there a number with everything?
I'd have to get that only because some of the 3.9 FTEs, they're fractional folks. Some might work a 0.4, not eligible for benefits. Some might be a 0.5. That's probably where the 0.9 came from. And so I'm really not sure what plans they might be on, but I can pinpoint that, if you will, and get back to you, Brian, if I could.
Yeah,
That'd be great. Yeah, if you could share that, and then we can get this out to the full committee, so that full subcommittee, so we can do that. Any other questions?
How is that bus working out? Has that gotten you where you need it? You expect that's something that will need to be retained next year, or is that too early to say?
So yes, I believe the bus is going to need to be retained. We saw yesterday with the craziness, and I understand it's a 1 day, it's unusual. We have bus concerns. We have concerns with the amount of time that our primary school students are on the buses. We have finally gotten to a point where in the morning, our primary school kids are getting to school on time. We spent a lot of time last year because that was a problem previously. So we're in a much better place. The afternoon is still a struggle because we're really running 3 tiers, as everybody knows. We're running the high school and middle school as 1 tier, Grays as a tier, the primaries as a tier. And with the expansiveness of the 2 towns, students, are getting on their buses in the primary schools, not right on time, sometimes 15, 20 minutes late, and it's making it complex. So to answer a long answer to your question, Brian, is yes, we certainly need that bus. I'm not saying we need more buses. We need to reconfigure how we're utilizing the buses.
Okay.
I think there's a couple of things, Alan. We also adjusted when the students are allowed in the schools.
Yes.
Right? So we've been able to modify
in the morning.
those pieces. So because of the 3-tiered system, because of the large footprint between, the edge of Lakeville and the edge of Freetown, right? So we're looking at those pieces, and you can imagine, especially at the elementary school level, we're throwing them a bagel as soon as they got the bus and run to class. Right? So we want to try and give them enough time where they can have, especially those that need to take advantage of the breakfast program. So we can do that. So it's not just the bus, as Alan said, we need to look at, I don't want to say rework the day, but the timing of the day, moving those ins and outs, what have you. So
I think it really changed.
Conversation.
It really changed, and it's getting away from regional FinCom, but it really changed when the high school changed its time from, I believe it was starting school at 7:15 and moved to 7:35 or 7:40. But yet the primary school and Grays did not change their time. So that has been the issue. So, but anybody who has a high school student, please do not think I'm sending school back at 7:15. We're not there.
One other thing I wanted just to speak to, the district relies quite heavily on collaboration services for special education. For anybody that has watched the school committee, we utilize them for a lot of our, I'll say, heavier evaluations. Beyond that, what our in-house psychologists can work through. The school committee is taking an approach of trying to minimize some of the expansion of the collaboration, meaning we just got a request that they want to expand the collaboration and include Brockton and Whitman-Hanson. Nothing against Brockton or Whitman-Hanson, but we're lowly Freetown-Lakeville, right? And we need those collaborative services, right? So we're asking a lot of questions. What does that do to us from a priority perspective, right? These are huge districts compared to ours. And we need those more than anything. So I'm only one of 8 on the committee, but I know right now the general consensus is we're voting no to add those two because of the impact from that collaborative, which is a great program. I don't want to belittle that, but it's just more of when you start adding some of these other big cities, these are not just another town. What impact does that have on our special education services that we use through the collaborative?
Right. We're talking about Reed's Collaborative.
Yeah.
That one in particular is Reed's Collaborative.
Yes.
Other questions? Ari, did that answer your question about ESSER?
It did. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? I know it's very early. I actually almost can say somewhat late as we talk about the budget process. I think town meeting's going to be here before we know it. But that is the case. Actually, just a quick question, Brian already answered. Are we back at a June town meeting, or are we still okay?
Yeah, the board changed, the town meeting changed the calendar. So I think something, I'll make a comment just regarding this budget process. I presented a presentation. I gave a presentation to the board a couple weeks ago, outlining our status, and we're showing very, very, very tight budget year this year. Basically, we're actually showing a deficit to start, and that's due to a couple of things. And we had modest numbers in for the schools. I think you guys have a challenge ahead of you because I think you have a structural issue between the ESSER money and the E&D, and that's probably going to be a challenge for you guys. I can't speak for Freetown, but I would not assume that Lakeville will have the money, have the ability to be able to cover all that. The state is showing a very tight budget this year, and that's going to be a real concern, considering what we're looking at. As, possibility of 9C cuts, possibility of shortfalls for various reasons, and and slowing economy. And I just would strongly advise you guys just be kind of cognizant of that fact as you put your numbers together.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Ari. I mean, just to add on to that, so yes, we're tentatively at a June 10th town meeting now in Lakeville after changing the bylaw at our last town meeting. We're looking at tentatively, I'm looking at our schedule here, already shared with us. If things move according to our plan, we're hoping to have the preliminary budget overview kind of end of February, and then have reviews and recommendations done by mid to late March. So I think, what can we do as a team, and this will go for the other schools as well, to ensure that, as we're going through the process, we're feeding back the information as we're getting it and letting you know, because like Ari said, we're already $250,000 in the hole conservatively before we even start, and we've got a pretty light placeholder for Freetown-Lakeville in there right now. I mean, if the original number from last year from Freetown-Lakeville were to come in, there's no way. it would have to be closer to what it was last year. Otherwise, I don't know where it's going to come from, unfortunately. Our new growth in town is way down. We've gone from, Ari, keep me honest here, 660,000 or so a couple of years ago to 300 last year, and we're looking at happy to hit 200 this year, maybe.
Yeah, that's about right.
So things they're not stalled, but they're getting really slow. And we're already expecting, like yourselves, insurances and such are going to outpace what we can raise with Prop 2.5 anyways.
Yep.
I'm sure it's not news to anybody, but just want to
No,
reiterate.
but I also think it's got to be fair news that I don't think we can come anywhere close to where we were last year. Right, less than 1%, I think, in Freetown, and just over 1% in or vice versa. Let's call it split the difference in 1% from the assessment. Love to get back to that point, but even if we throw in what is absolutely required, we're not at the 1%. Meaning, and I'm just talking about the compliance needs that we are legally have to provide. Right, you throw in a couple $100,000 student move-in. That right there has a very strong impact, right? And so we definitely have to look at this. We definitely have to prioritize. Unfortunately, it may have an impact on capital projects. But, how do we look at, taking a look at this and prioritizing and moving them down the road? As I know both towns are aware, but, debt exclusions, came off the books the last 3 years and, haven't been replaced, right? So those savings have been coming in through that. But as I said, still early in the process, understand. And once we get more information, more news, then we can figure out a priority and see where things are at.
I don't want to misspeak here, but has the district also figured out a way to operationalize your costs for all the tablets and such now? Or are those still being pulled from E&D or capital?
I don't think we fully assessed all that, Brian. I think we can authorize some of them, but I think it's when we get into, if I remember correctly, 2027 is where we have the big chunk that we need to make sure we do have that. So I do know some of them we have, but not the full magnitude that I think comes, if I remember correctly, in 27 here.
Okay.
We did get, Brian, just so you know, I think 2 years ago, maybe it was the year that the district had to purchase all the one-to-one tablets. At the time, it was a 5-year. Chromebooks were supposed to last for 5 years. In the latest reiteration that we purchased prior to my arrival with Rick Medeiros, we now found out that we have it until 2028, not 2027. So they've extended the life of them for 2 more years. So that buys us a little bit of time as well.
I just wanted to clarify something if I could. Forgive me, I'm a little under the weather.
Ms. Petty, can you put your camera on just because it is being recorded?
Okay. I mean, I'm a little under the weather, guys, so.
I understand that, Deb.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera on. Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Just wanted to clarify that, Mr. Owen, you talk about the assessment being less than 1%, but the budget increased nearly 5%. The assessment was just down to 1% because the state aid increased. My concern is, and I think it's a valid concern, is that the state can't sustain its own budget. So it's going to cut. It may not be this year, but it will eventually cut some of the additional aid. So you'll be looking for the towns to make up that 4%. And if you actually increase the budget, which was roughly a $45 million budget, if you increase it, we've got to come up with the reduction in the state aid plus whatever you increase the budget. So there's some, I think the arguments that we made last year was this isn't sustainable. It's even louder this year, like it's not sustainable. So I don't think Freetown is in any different position than Lakeville, because we have the BP district that we will be, this will be the first year that we are taking on a total cost of the operating, budget for BP. So that's a big hit to our budgets this year. So I just want to, clarify that, because it's really not when you say the assessment was less than 1%, yes, but that's not the increase in the budget. The increase in the budget was much greater than that. Now I'm going to try to shut the camera off.
Feel better,
Appreciate
Deb.
it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I don't see any hands.
Darren, you have any thoughts?
Being somewhat new to this round of budgeting, I'm just kind of taking it all in. It sounds like there are definitely some challenges from the town and the school committee, and I think from the outside, communication is going to be key, right? I mean, I think both parties want the same thing, to help the students the best they can, as much as they can, but there's also some fiscal hurdles that both sides need to overcome. So I think communication along the entire process will at least not create any surprises at the end.
Yeah, I would expect, Darren, that the same process over the last couple of years, both in not only meetings like this, but also feedback from school committee meetings, discussion. There's also been a number of one-on-one discussions, both between the superintendent and the director of finance, with both towns, right? So I think there would be an active conversation that happens. So, and I don't foresee that process changing at all.
Okay, great. Well, I look forward to getting more involved and helping out any way I can.
I will
Yeah,
be
the only
sending
thing
out.
that I would ask is, just with the number of moving pieces here, Alan, please get me wrong, any type of requests like this, is it fair to make sure that we CC Renee so that way there's somebody shepherding all these through the right resources to make sure we're getting all the questions answered?
Correct.
Yeah.
Um,
I know in the past there's been direct communication with the director of finance and what have you. We just want to make sure that that is all centralized and making sure that we are getting the right feedback. When I say we, the district school committee. I will follow up with this email in summary when we get the answer to the question that Deidre's going to get back to us on, just to include Renee's email, just so that way any questions that does come in, that we don't drop the ball and get feedback back to you.
We will also include for all of you, if you have not received it, a copy of our calendar and the process that we're going through as a district. So you have an idea as to where we are each step of the way.
It was included in the meeting invite, Alan, the calendar.
Yeah, but I know some people may not have seen it, or so we'll just send it again.
Perfect.
Yeah, and just I'm going to request again. I didn't have any communication with the director of finance. I haven't had any communication with anybody this fiscal year. So if I could be included in those conversations, I would appreciate that.
Yep.
You didn't talk to the director of finance when we did the FY24 budget? Or are you talking about current year we're in there now?
Current year. It sounded
okay.
Current meetings that have been happening ongoing. I just have not been included in those.
Yeah, so if town administrators or town officials are reaching out to Alan, I know those are conversations. There hasn't been any direct outreach based upon any budget discussion as of yet for this budget season. But we'll make sure that the town administration for both towns, as well as at least the members of this committee, is aware as well.
All right, I think that answered a lot of the questions that we've had at recent select board meetings. Was there anything that we're forgetting to ask?
No, I think it's going to be an ongoing dialogue. I mean, as you guys may know, I'm departing, so the select board voted last night to appoint an interim TA, Bob Nunes, who certainly knows his way around finance, and I think he'll be a great asset. So I would encourage you guys to engage with him when he comes on board January 19th.
Okay.
Make sure he meets everybody.
So for the next steps, obviously, we all have our own legwork to do. I know we can set up another time to meet again because I know once we get past January town meetings, the individual board meetings comes fast and furious, and it's quite to get on the schedule. I try to look at the town calendars to make sure that if there is a town select board or finance committee plan, that I don't make it that proposal. So my question to the two towns, what is the best way to make that recommendation, right? So I did look at both calendars, and last night was available based upon the calendar, but I know there was both meetings in both towns. So what is the best way to, I can send out a meeting and see what day works, but as you can imagine, getting a schedule for 6 individuals to be on the same page is often challenging. So looking for a better way and how we can address that.
I mean, Steve, for Lakeville, you can reach out to Tracy, the EA for the select board. She always has our upcoming meetings. I would like to publish our proposed dates on our calendar, but I guess we tried that in the past and folks were upset that there wasn't an agenda attached to it yet. So yeah, a little challenging there. Something I'd like to figure out.
Well, let's just try at least.
But Tracy knows them for now.
Okay. And on the Freetown side, did Deb drop off? I think Deb dropped off.
No. So I mean, you can reach out to Luann Souza on our side. Same kind of situation. We have like tentative meetings scheduled out pretty much every other Monday, right? But that's just tentative, and as we get closer to those, they happen to change, right? Before we post them sometimes, but usually it's Monday, so any other day of the week generally should be good.
Yeah.
Margaret, for you for the finance committee, I don't know. Are you guys usually?
We usually end up on Wednesdays, but
Okay.
that's like in May.
Yeah.
So I know this is the last couple of years, the communication has been great. I know prior to that, it's been a challenge is not the right word to even get a quorum for this meeting. So I will do my best to try and get people and obviously appreciate if you say you can attend, great, we're in attendance and we can make sure that we do have a quorum so we can move this forward here. So, so I will reach out to Luann and Tracy to see what January looks like. Promise it won't be January 1st, but at least have some initial discussions as we go through the process. The school committee does not meet again until that first week anyway, so I will probably make it for after that date and see if we can collectively get on the calendar again for us all to come back.
I can tell you right now, Steve, the Lakeville Select Board is tentatively January 8th and 22nd.
Okay.
If nothing changes between now and then.
Yeah. It's like New England weather, maybe. So
just wait 15 minutes.
Yeah. Trevor, on the not to put you on the spot, do you have a tentative on the Freetown side?
Yep, looking right now. Hold on. So
And Trevor?
yeah, we have 4 right now. I have January 4th and the 18th.
Oh, okay.
No, it might. Sorry, I'm wrong. Those are in the past. I have January 2nd and the 16th, which are both Tuesdays. So
Got it. Okay.
I already lied.
Yeah. All right. As I said, I will throw out a proposal looking at this for us to meet again in January. And then obviously as we get more information, I know once we get the key thing is getting some initial information from the state so we can look at that as well. And as we work to get some of our big ticket items such as insurance, so we can start a giant paintbrush on this budget before we start to drilling into some of the details. Okay.
That's good.
All right. Thank you, everybody. It's 7:10. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Day, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Matthews, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm assuming there's no objection. Seeing none, I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Hey, real quick.
If I don't talk to you, enjoy the holiday. Mr. Sky, if you don't have a chance to speak, all the best.
Thanks, Steve.
Working with you.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. It's been good working with
Trevor,
you.
you had a question?
Yeah, do we have to roll call because it's Zoom, or is that I know on the select board meetings when we do Zoom, you have to do a roll call vote in addition.
I was told as long as you're on video, right? There's not enough doing that, but I'm more
Okay.
welcome to do a quick roll call. Mr. Day,
Aye.
Mr. Matthews,
Aye.
Ms. Calhada, and myself, Mr. Owen, all aye. It is unanimous to adjourn.
Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for
Thank
pulling
you.
this together.